Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another League of Legends guide video. And in today's guide, we're going to be looking over Shen. Now, Shen is a tanky ninja who can provide so much for a team, whether it be shielding you from across the world or protecting you all from those nasty Zeds. Along with his ability to duel in such a unique way compared to many other champions, thanks to him and his trusty Spirit Blade. So there's so much we have to go into on Shen because this is like my most favorite champion throughout League of Legends, even though I've not played him a lot recently. But still, he is my most favorite champion, and hopefully I can provide you with all the details I can with what I know from my knowledge for Shen and what I can provide for you. So we'll be going through Shen's abilities, his runes, his builds, his laning phase, how to play him support and jungle, and what he's like in team fights, and everything about Shen, including little combos and little tips that you should know as a Shen player, or for a person that's just wanting to learn Shen. And trust me, this champion isn't so extremely difficult in the beginning. He may seem that way, he's only difficult to master. So firstly, we'll be looking over Shen's passive, which is Key Barrier. Shen controls his Spirit Blade and is able to manipulate it within his kit for battle. After Shen completes an ability, meaning it's fully gone off, Shen shields himself for 50 to 100 based upon level. If one champion is affected, then Key Barrier's cooldown is reduced by 4 to 7 seconds, which is also based on level. And then we'll look at Shen's main ability, which is Twilight Assault. When Shen activates Twilight Assault, he recalls his blade to his location, giving Shen 3 empowered auto attacks. If the blade collides with an enemy champion, while traveling to Shen, he gains bonus attack speed and 3 bonus magic damage empowered basic attacks. This is what helps him make early game trades and to keep him in long-lasting duels. Another thing to keep in mind is when enemies are affected by the travel of Shen's Spirit Blade when it's going to him, enemies are slowed 15 to 35% when running away from Shen. So you want to try casting this as many times as you can. Eventually they'll start running away from you and they're going to get slowed and you can do more damage to them. Also, empowered auto attacks deal 100% bonus damage to monsters, but the total damage is capped because it's a really strong ability. And then we'll look at Shen's W, which is Spirit's Refuge. Shen creates a circle around his Spirit Blade, which becomes a protective zone, which blocks basic attacks, including empowered basic attacks, for you and your allies when they stand within it. If nobody is within the protective circle when activated, the ability will delay 2 seconds or until an ally or you enters the zone. Now this is super good for champions against like Yasuo for when he Qs, same with Fiora or when she presses E or when she lunges at you to press Q. Same goes with Anasa's Q. This will expand now to what you guys know about empowered auto attacks or abilities. Then we'll look at Shen's E, which is Shadow Dash. Shen dashes in a target location in a straight line, which deals physical damage to all enemies and monsters, taunting them for 1.5 seconds. Another thing to note is that Shadow Dash and Twilight Assault, which is Shen's Q, recovers 30 to 40 energy based on level. So actively staying in fights and when you keep on using abilities causes your energy to refill and be ready for the next engage or the next ability cast. And then we'll look at Shen's R, which is Stand United. When using Shen's R, the player can decide who they can use this on, and it's a global ultimate, so it will reach anyone. Shen's ultimate allows him to teleport to an ally anywhere on the map, with a 3-second channel beforehand, granting the ally a shield when the ability begins for 5 seconds on activating the ability. And then Shen gains a shield when he arrives to the ally while bringing the Spirit Blade with him. Now, one thing to note about this ultimate is that it has one of the longest cooldowns in the game. It has 200 seconds on it. Remember, it's not the longest, it's one of the longest, because it's a really, really powerful ultimate, as you can see. Shen's ultimate can also be cancelled during his 3 seconds of channeling with hard CC, so you gotta make sure there's no one around to hard CC you. Unless you're with a champion that can't do that, then you're fine. Shen's ultimate also shields up to 60%, but it's dependent on the missing health of an ally that you cast it on. And usually the use of Shen's ulti is what separates a good Shen and a bad Shen, and this is all aside from mechanics. So before I move on to the next thing, I just want to quickly summarize the abilities and tell you everything you need to know about them. The passive will activate anytime you use an ability. That's the first simple thing to get out the way. And also remember, when you cast other abilities that affect other champions, it will reduce the passive cooldown, which is really good to use in duels. This includes the Q traveling through enemies, because it will give you a shield while allowing you to duel against the enemy, and they won't be doing so much damage considering your passive is up and you can keep reproccing it. This is of course dependent on how high your level is. And another thing is that your Q also regenerates your energy, and this is why you also need your E ability, because that is what also gives your energy back. You can E through an enemy champion, which taunts them, and when you taunt an enemy champion, you end up being behind them. Well, it really depends on how far you are from the enemy target. And once you taunt fully through them, you can cast your Q Blade to go right through them and to you, and you can keep attacking them. And if you think that they're gonna hurt a lot more, you can activate your W and nullify a bunch of damage. This is really good against Renekton, especially because his W isn't empowered, meaning he won't be able to stun you if you can time this correctly. And whenever you trade well, it's really rewarding. And your W ability is mostly useful in supporting, because it will block a bunch of auto attacking and it will help protect you and your ADC AC for when you have a lot of incoming damage, especially under the tower, or for when you're going for the defensive side. And then Shen's R ability is really useful. You can travel all the way across the map using your R ability from top lane all the way to bot lane, let's say, to help your ally. And it doesn't have to be used across the map anyways. It can be used to someone right next to you as long as you get them a big shield. It just makes you vulnerable because you don't get to really do anything besides channel for 3 seconds. But it's worth it because you end up teleporting to the ally, getting another shield, and you'll be able to do a bunch of damage to the enemy champion. Usually what you would do is press R on your ally champion. They will move towards the enemy champion, and you use your E shadow dash to jump onto them. And remember, this can hit multiple targets, so this is really good for catching out enemies and for team fights. It's really, really good because you can hold a whole team of 5 for 1.5 seconds, which is enough time for your allies to do a lot. Usually this can help in situations like Yasuo wombo combos. If someone has knock-up that can knock up everyone, it could be Yasuo himself or let's say a Cho'Gath. You could hold all of the enemies with your E while Cho'Gath presses Q and then Yasuo presses ult, and then you can go so on and so forth, and you can continue to do combos like that. Shen really does synergize with a lot of team comps as well, and he's so flexible within the roles that he can play. He can either go top, jungle, or support. And that's enough for a Shen player, honestly. They can be satisfied with either of those lanes, even if they don't get their role. So for when it comes to ability maxing with Shen, you obviously want to go for your Q, because this is your most damage output, and maxing this ability also allows you to get more energy when you're hitting enemies with this ability. Because remember, the amount of energy you regain scales with the leveling up of the Q. So you want to get your Q ability maxed out as soon as possible, then you want to get your E ability maxed out as soon as possible. The only thing that changes within the E ability is the cooldown, and the damage also. The taunt duration does not change, so it's not really that efficient to take E first. The only time it would be efficient to take E first is when you're going for an invade and you know you're going to get your E on the enemy champion. Sometimes you can assure it with your flash and it will almost 100% guarantee a kill. And then after that you can go Q then W. Otherwise, you want to max your Q at the very beginning, max your E, then max your W. Because W doesn't really change a lot. Only thing that really does change is the cooldown. And then you want to put points in your R ability as soon as you can, whenever it's essential or whenever it's up, because this is what you do with every other champion. When it comes to summoner spells, you want to go flash and teleport for when it comes to top lane, because you want to be able to get back to your lane and you want to keep ahead in CS. When it comes to support, you want to go ignite and flash, so you can go for that early game aggression, along with making your engages super powerful with Shen's Q ability combined. And then you go flash and smite for when you're going jungle with Shen. And obviously, you want to go flash all the time because you can combine it with your E ability, which is what I will get into when it comes to combos. But for now, we're going to move over to the runes for Shen. Now, when it comes to tanky Shen, or the generic Shen that you will always go, you want to go Grasp of the Undying, Shield Bash, Bone Plating, and Overgrowth. And then you can go Precision, taking Triumph and Alacrity second. And then you want to go Attack Speed rune, we'll go in 2 armor runes for when it comes to the mini runes. So Grasp is super important because this can be procced a lot in team fights along with in lane, and it's good for full tank builds because it expands on your maximum health. And remember, your passive does scale with maximum health along with your E ability, which is why it's essential to build health on Shen when playing him in lane. It helps to keep the sustain within lane, and it's good against every kind of champion except from ranged champions because you're not really going to get close to them. So it's good for champions like bruisers and big tanks, and this really does help with early game trades, especially within skill matchups like Fiora or Riven or Yasuo. And you having more health allows your abilities to scale well, your shield scales better as well, which means you take less damage and you do more damage. But another thing about this is I will not always go Shield Bash. Shield Bash is actually one of the most popular runes to be going right now, but I would take Demolish instead. The only reason I would is because Shen really has nothing within his kit that will empower his ability to split push on towers. Having Shen bash on a tower is like having another minion bash on the tower, which is not really that effective. So this is why I take Demolish in this option, because it scales with your health and you do so much tower damage, especially for split pushing. And you can go other options for when you're playing support as well. You can, instead of taking Overgrowth, you can go Unflinching, or you can go Revitalize if you want to take less damage. But I would probably take Unflinching when it comes to support. And when it does come to ranged champion matchups, or when you want to take a lot less damage, you go Aftershock. And I think that's going to help a lot for when it comes into team fighting, and especially for when you're supporting. And then another option you can go is Conqueror, Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, going Domination, taking Cheap Shot, and Ultimate Hunter. Now, I've given this a try many times within top lane, and it's been so successful for me, but obviously not everything is going to work for everyone. But Conqueror can be quite beneficial to mega tanks because it does true damage, which goes through resistances, along with destroying certain counter matchups that you can face, like Yorick. Yorick actually used to be super strong against Shen, but I took Conqueror into Yorick and it ended up turning around. Now I'm not really sure if Yorick is a big counter to Shen, considering Shen did get his Q damage back in one of the patches, which was only a few patches ago. But still, I do think it is a skill matchup in the end, but Conqueror really does help to outduel champions like that. Triumph is really good because you regain your health back, which gives you more of an assassin slash fighter mindset. And then you go Legend Alacrity because attack speed is really nice to have on Shen because of when you proc your Q through enemy champions, you get so much attack speed and you can let it all off in almost under a second. And then Last Stand is nice to have because while you're low health or whenever someone's diving you, you can use your damage of Last Stand when you taunt an enemy champion under your tower, so the tower and you are doing so much damage to them. And then Cheap Shot is actually a really popular choice for Shen recently, considering it does true damage for when they are impaired, meaning you can E on top of them and you can do true damage to the enemy champion. And then Ultimate Hunter is nice and beneficial to lower the cooldown of your ultimate, considering Shen has one of the longest cooldowns for his ulti in the game. And then finally, this is something I would go for jungle. I would either go Hail of Blades or Predator. But what's so nice about Hail of Blades? Well, it's extremely powerful on Shen, considering Hail of Blades gives you attack speed for the next 3 autos, and Shen's Q has 3 empowered autos, which makes more sense. And this is very strong when he procs his Q through the enemy champion, because he gains bonus attack speed from the ability, and he gains bonus attack speed from Hail of Blades, which is super strong in the jungle. But why is that super strong in the jungle? Because if you were in top lane, you'd be able to proc it, and then all you have to do is wait around and hope it comes up again. Whereas in jungle, this is really good for ganks because you can do a burst of damage, and you can end up either getting enemies' spells with the help of your allies, or you can end up getting a kill, which is why it's super beneficial to take within the jungle. So if you want to go in and do a bunch of burst within the early game, then you take Hail of Blades. Even though you're going the tanky build, this is super good to take. And remember, this only works against enemy champions, but that's good enough. Otherwise, you can go any other options like Aftershock. I think Aftershock is your probably safe and go-to pick for when you go to jungle. And another thing to help the burst is the sudden impact, as when you dash, you get a burst of lethality and magic penetration, so this is going to give you the early game assassin mindset. Ghost Poro is really good to have because it lasts the duration of your wards when they die, because Ghost Poros do stay a lot longer, and they linger around as your wards expire. So this is good to keep an eye on your objectives as well, and to force enemy champions to go on the Ghost Poro if they really want to secure the vision. Ultimate Hunter is good to take in this situation as well, along with going Presence of Mind on Precision. And why is that? It's because it drastically lowers the ultimate cooldown. If you have 40% CDR with Ultimate Hunter fully stacked with Presence of Mind, Shen's ulti is almost as low as a regular assassin. But remember, to get your Presence of Mind to proc, you have to take down enemies, and that's the best way you're going to get your ulti back, and you're going to be using it more actively within the jungle. And that's the best time to use it, because you could be anywhere on the map and you can gank across the whole world from using your ultimate, so it's really, really good. And then you go Legend Alacrity to help with your farming, along with the attack speed mini rune, going 2 armors, and this will help you massively within the jungle. So now we're going to be moving over to Shen's builds. So when it comes to starter items, it can get really wide within the options of what you want to go. Usually when you go in top lane and you want to start with sustain, you go Doran Shield and you want to go Healing Pot. If you think you can out damage the enemy champion, and if you counter that matchup, I'd advise going Doran's Blade because it provides a lot of attack damage along with lifesteal. Relic Shield is good to take for when you're going support, of course, because it helps you heal your ADC for when you're hitting down minions, and especially for when you're farming cannon minions, because you get a huge amount of gold and so does your ADC, and you're sharing quite a good amount of gold between yourselves. And you can upgrade this and get extra health, which does scale with Shen on his E ability and his passive, so it's good to build this in general and to upgrade it to a Targon's Brace to get more relic shields or relic charges, and then you can go ahead and finish the item and get a bunch of health out of it. And usually when you're going jungle, you want to take a Hunter's Machete. Don't make the mistake like I did, who didn't put this in this recommended, and I ended up taking a longsword in the jungle and being really far leveled behind. Please don't make that mistake like I did. And then after that, you take a refillable pot, or you could take 3 pots. It's up to you. And then if you're going up against a top lane matchup against, say, Teemo or something, you can take Null Magic Mantle with a healing pot. Otherwise, you could take Doran's Shield. But if you want to take Null Magic Mantle, this is where you have to rush your Adaptive Helm. Otherwise, if you're going up against the AD heavy champion on top lane, you can go Cloth Armor with a bunch of healing pots, because it will keep you sustained and reduce damage. But you will never usually really need this, unless you're wanting to rush your Sunfire Cape, which is why you can also start Ruby Crystal and 2 pots. This is what I've done before to rush my Sunfire Cape ASAP. And if you're feeling a little bit cocky, you could go Longsword with your Rejuvenation Bead. And what does this allow? This allows you to build your Tiamat very fast, and this is the main item for Shen for wave clearing. Just bearing in mind, you won't be able to buy any pots, you're going to be regenning off your Rejuvenation Bead. So it's going to be very risky if you're taking this option. And then when it comes to first backing, here are the options. You usually want to go for your Tiamat ASAP. Otherwise, you want to go for your Balmy Cinder. These items both help within wave clear, because Shen's wave clear alone is not good enough without these items. Because because his abilities are single target abilities, and his taunts don't really affect minions. Only his Q is really effective against minions, along with the W ability as well, because if you're wanting to hold a wave, you can use your W to block minion attacks. So mainly you want to go either Tiamat or Bomby Cinder, and then you want to go Boots. But if you're going up against a really heavy AD matchup on top lane, you want to go Ninja Tabby straight away before you start building the other items. Otherwise, you can go Mercury Treads if they have a lot of CC on top lane, if you're being camped, or if they have a lot of AP to start with. And then when it comes to core items, you want to go for Sunfire Cape or Titanic Hydra first. These are your two items, your two main items for Shen, and you want to build one or the other first. It depends on which kind of matchup you're going against, and if it's an 80 heavy which you can't damage, or you can't out-trade, you want to go Sunfire Cape because you get a lot of health and a lot of armor, and health helps you scale, and armor keeps you protected. Titanic Hydra is really good for clearing and also bursting down enemy champions. When you use the active during your combo of your Q bursts, this procs with your Q ability as well. This is really nice to have, and it will help melt down enemy champions. Wit's End is super good, and it's become a really good item, especially after it got changed. It's super good to build on Shen because it has magic resist and attack speed, and this really helps with the Q-Blade because it procs really fast, and also it has the healing effect of when you're below 50% health, which is super good on Shen. And then you want to go mainly your Ninja Tabby, and this is probably most likely the case because you're going against AD matchups most of the time on top lane. If you're going against like a Swain or a Ryze, you want to take Mercury Treads. When it comes to situational items, you can go Black Cleaver if you're fighting someone that has so much armor you can't stand them. Black Cleaver actually works decently on Shen. It's not that hard to proc, and if you can get two of your empowered Qs to go successfully through the enemy, you can proc Black Cleaver pretty considerably fast. But it's not going to be as fast as any other champions such as Darius or anyone else, considering he has bleed. But with Shen, it's fine. It's not too bad, and it helps melt down armor, but it's usually not going to be an often item that you take on Shen. Triforce has been a really good pick recently, especially within pro play and within Korea. A lot of people don't like to build it only because of the mana, but what's mana when you got the rest of the item, the other base stats and the passive of this item? This is why you shouldn't really worry about the other base stats of an item if it's going to benefit you more either way. Remember, it's not wasted, it's just using something else to help within your kit. Blade of the Ruined King is decent actually because it can help slow down enemy champions along with giving you lifesteal and attack speed. And Warmog's armor is a really good late game option, especially if you're going into fights and always ending up with low health. This is a super good item for cases like that. And if you want to be really annoying to enemy champions or mostly melee matchups, you can go Frozen Mallet. If the enemy champions are mostly melee, this is super good to take because they'll mostly be fighting you close range, and you can use the Frozen Mallet slow combined with the slow of people running away from Shen when his Q goes through enemy champions. It's really annoying, and it's really strong sometimes. But out of these items, Triforce would probably be the most popular. And then finally, when it comes to resistances, you want to go Sunfire Cape, Randuin's Omen, Thornmail, Deadman's, or even Zhonya's. This is good for going against AD champions. Sunfire is obviously your core item, and it also scales with your E and your passive because it has a lot of health, and that's along with all the other items on this list. Randuin's Omen is really good because it reduces amount of crit damage, and it has an active which slows enemy champions that are around you. Thornmail is super good because it has Bramble Vest. Bramble Vest is super strong only because of the grievous wounds, meaning if enemies have a lot of healing or if they heal for attacking you, it will be massively reduced by that item. Bramble Vest is an item that builds into Thornmail, and usually you want to get that first if you're fighting matchups like Fiora. This can massively turn around a fight, and it's really popular to take into champions that can heal for hurting you. Deadman's Plate is super good in the late game considering it gives you a lot of movement speed, and it has a nice proc to do a bunch of damage, which is usually most oftenly taken in the jungle or when it comes to late game and they have a lot of mobility. And then Zhonya's Hourglass is just a funky option. It does have armor, and it does have AP, and it has a active which is really annoying. I'm not saying I'm highly recommending this, but I've tried it before, and it's probably most likely as effective as an Ohm Wrecker. Well, it has AP scaling, and Shen's main abilities do scale with AP, like his Q, but the ratios are terrible. The only good ratio is the ultimate, because the ultimate does scale 135% with AP, so this is the only time you'd be benefiting out of it. I mean, if you want a bigger shield, you can go Zhonya's Hourglass. Trust me, I'm not trolling, I've tried this before. And then when you want to go anti-AP, you want to take Adaptive Helm. This is a must against Teemos, Cassiopeias, or even Rumbles, honestly. The burn damage is crazy, and you really want to take this. This really does help against people with Liandry's Torment, or just people who have poison and are very annoying. Then you want to go Spirit Visage because you get a decent amount of healing, and that will go really well with your Grasp of the Undying, or if you went Blade of the Ruined King, but it mainly does go well with Wit's End, and I've already explained how good this item is. Banshee's Veil is probably a 6th item I would take. I've actually used this item before and made it pretty effective. You get a spell shield that's pretty nice, you get a lot of AP, and you get a lot of of magic resist. Now this does seem a little like the funky option of Zhonya's Hourglass, but to be honest, I think this item is pretty good because of the damage it provides. And remember, it's only really going to be strong when you get your Q-Blade through an enemy champion, because the amount of AP you get after doing that is actually a lot bigger than your base Q. And if you're fighting bursty mages on top lane, you want to go Hex Drinker. I've seen this option be really popular within the top lane, especially within Korean servers. Another vital thing to note is that Titanic Hydra and Sunfire Cape are really good for wave clearing. Triforce and ZZ Rot are good for split pushing. So when it comes to late game and you're not able to split push, just stick with your allies and try to make a play. Otherwise, if you do have Triforce and ZZ Rot, these massively do help to push towers. And then when it comes for supporting with Shen, you want to usually go Knight's Vow as your first item after getting your Targon's Brace, or you can finish off the item. But I would usually go Knight's Vow first because it has good base stats with the health and armor, along with you having to bind with your ally, helping you absorb more damage, and it keeps you more healthy and sturdy in team fights. Locket of the Iron Solari is a really good item because it scales with health and it provides a big shield depending on how much health you have, and it's really good in team fights and to protect your ADC. Because sometimes the ulti shield you have is not enough, and you want to be shielding as many people as you can, and you want to protect as many people as you can, because that's where Shen is. He's mostly a support tank, regardless of where he's being played. Zeke's Convergence is really good because of the ultimate applying the burn damage for your ally, and Redemption's also a really good overall item because you can use it while you're dead, it has CDR, it has a bit of AP, and it provides a lot of healing towards your allies. And then when it comes to jungling, you want to usually go Stalker's Blade or Skirmisher's Saber, and then you want to go the Cinder enchantment, and usually you'd be rushing the Cinder first after you get your machete so you can burn the jungle camps. And if you want to make landing your E easier, you want to go for the Stalker's Blade, which is the blue one, but if you want to do more damage, then I would go for Skirmisher's Saber. Other than that, I would go boots that would correspond to the game or to the situation of what comps are being played. Mobility boots is really good for getting active ganks. Otherwise, you can go any other boots if you really do need the resistances. And buy control wards as many times as you can. This is really essential as vision is very important regardless. It's good for warding your tri-bush, and make sure you put it far back into the tri-bush so enemies really have to reach in for it. It really does make for a good bait.